Hi everyone, and welcome to louisemckayart. And if you're here today, you're here to see part 2 of my charcuterie board series. And just to recap, part 1 is always going to be the paint pour itself on the silicone mat. Part 2, this part is where I'm going to show you peeling off the paint skin, cutting out the paint skin to dress it for the board, and then touching up the edges of the paint skin in preparation prior to part 3, which is where you are going to apply the paint skin to the board. And then part 4 is a private tutorial. It's a 37-minute tutorial, and it's a pay for tutorial where in the couple years I've been doing this, I'm going to share with you all of the details I've learned through hit and miss and trial and error of how to get that beautiful smooth resin finish. So I'm going to show you how to prep the board, how to prep the resin area, how to do the actual resin application, and then the finishing off of the resin the next day. And then part 5 is going to be finishing off the board altogether. So this is a 5-part series. If you're interested in part 4, I just ask that people email me and we'll get the details out to you guys. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get into the actual paint skin part of this process. So what I have are 2 paint skins that I did, and I usually wait at least 4 days. A week is probably the safest, but these things dry pretty quick. These things dry faster on these silicone mats, which I get. These I got from Amazon in a pack of 3 for not too much, I don't remember. But I should have it linked in the description. All you do, once it's dry, you just find the edge, just fold it down a little bit. Matter of fact, it can probably just come right off. Find the edge and just gently peel it off. It's that simple. This is what the back side looks like, in case you're curious. And now here's number 2. And these 2 together will make a board, charcuterie board. So yeah, you peel the edge, pick off the edge, pull it off gently. If it gets hung up anywhere, just peel that edge. Once again, that's the back. There we go. Now, the cutout. So, all I do, I first of all start by cutting out the rough idea of where I'm going to go with this. And then I'll put it on the board and figure out exactly how I want to lay. But to start with, I just cut it out like I'm cutting out paper dolls. Remember when you're little kids? You're a little kid, little girl, and you cut out the paper dolls. Cut out their dresses, I think, or cut out their outfits. So yeah, I'm just going to cut this out roughly. I don't go for perfection at this point, but I do get all the extra white off of it, so I know where I'm going. I know what size I have approximately, and then once I get it on the board, I'll get it exactly the way I want it. So like, that's kind of cool. Matter of fact, I'll just keep it for now. We might use it. But anything that I know is kind of junky, I'm just going to cut it right off. So I'm just going to go around. I might fast forward through some of this. This doesn't need to be a long and protracted video. I might, maybe I'll just talk through this. So I decided to break it down like this because I was doing videos for every single creation, and I was making a separate video like this for every creation, and if you're not a YouTube poster, you might not understand, but editing videos is sometimes just the biggest pain in the butt. It takes time, it takes effort, so I'm trying to make my life easier. And actually, in turn, it makes your life easier too, because what happens is you get to see the paint skin or the creation that I made with the fluidart first, And then if you want to tune in for a second phase, you can go to chapter 2. And you can watch it on your own free time. It's a separate video, standalone. So it only focuses on this part. And I'm not going to do a video on the wood part, aside from what I've done on my fusion pieces. And I'll link that video above here too, where the types of tools you need to create, to work with wood. You know, you need a Dremel, you need preferably you have a saw of some kind, a table saw, something. The Dremel, like I said, a hand sander. Of course, all the sandpaper and various grits, starting with 60 or 80, 120, 220, and 320, I believe. Oh, no, 220. 220 is usually the highest I go with grit on the boards. Okay. So this is where we are. So we go from this to this. Matter of fact, let me cut this part off too. So yeah, I end up playing, I just play with the scissors and I cut and get this where I want it to go. And to me, that's one of the biggest benefits of using a paint skin, is that you can control the composition as you're placing it on the wood. And this thing here I may want to keep, I don't know. You know, I'm going to keep it for now, and then we'll decide as we go. Let's do the second one here. So since you've seen me do the first one, I'm going to skip past most of this until I get to a point on the second one where it actually is a learning point that I think might be beneficial to you. So I'm going to skip ahead here. So here's a situation where I have the blowout and then this weird ghosty thing going on. Technically, the ghosty thing is probably something I could get rid of, but for right now, I'm going to keep it until I figure out how this is going to look on the board. I could maybe make that the back side of the board, which would then be falling off on the back side. If you've been watching me, you know what I mean. And then it'll just disappear in the end. But until we know what we're doing, I'm going to keep as much as I can. It seems like it's worth saving for further evaluation. Okay, so here we are. We got this. Let me get the board. I think I'll be putting it on this board. So let's just take a look. Let's just pretend here and see how this might look. This is where I probably could use your help in determining what's the best way to do this. This board is not fully ready yet for the reception of the skins, but that'll happen next. And I don't think I'm going to go into that detail. That's up to you to decide what stain you're going to use and how you're going to do that. So let's just take a look here. So I just sit here and I look at the board. Do I like that? That looks kind of messy to me. That's not exactly perfect to me. It's kind of sloppy looking. So we'll put that in the section that's going to go away. Now we have this over here, the thing I said was going to be potentially a problem, like a scrappable. But I might just keep that. It looks kind of cool. Matter of fact, I might put it over the edge. Actually, hold on a second. That looks kind of cool. So, I'm not going to go through everything here, but I am just showing you what I go through to get where I want to go. I want the smaller one over here. So when I first start the creation, I always lay out the pillow kind of in an oblong to get it started going in this direction. And this one definitely satisfied that. So it probably will end up going like this. Some factors I consider: I don't want to go over the corners. I don't want to be doing this because you can't. It's silly to try. So I want to have always my corners open, and I have my little black one there and my little gold one here. I might just keep those anyway. So, and the other thing is I want to have room for the board for people to place stuff down. So I might move that like this. Anyway, I just do a lot of playing around, seeing what I think is going to work. And then once I think I have it where I want it, bearing in mind handles, these are handles I got from Amazon. I always like to have the bloom be ever present. So this is probably about where I'm going to go, and I'll probably cut this in. I might even cut all this off and just leave this as a jagged edge here. So that's just some of the thought process. Anything that's going to go over the edge will be folded over, and I'll get to that part in the next video. But next I'm going to show you coloring off the edges in preparation for putting it on the board for the next chapter. But I'm going to also take some time off camera to figure out exactly how I'm going to do this, and you'll see that when we're back. Okay, I'll be back in a second. All right, everybody, I'm back, and just to let you know, since we saw each other last, where I had the rough cut of the paint skins, which all of the rough cut is here, I've since gone back in after deciding how I'm going to probably have these lay, and done a lot of other trimming to include some pretty fine pieces. I mean, really, to get it to fit right. Things I look for: making sure if I'm going to have overlap, I have overlap that's significant enough that it's going to stay without any problem. So I need a good overlap. I don't want to have it like that, because that is going to be a problem trying to get it to stick. So I always go for a placement where I have a good overlap, my ends are exposed so the wood can be seen, and I want these two to kind of look like they go together, which obviously they do. But it was a choice between, do I want to leave the black on the edge or do I want to leave the white on the edge? And I kind of went with the lighter side because this is going to be stained with a dark wood stain. I will probably be using this dark walnut Minwax, and that'll darken this up significantly. So these will pop off of that. So these are things I think about as I'm making my plans. So now, all I'm going to use is a Sharpie, and I'm not going to show you the whole part because it's kind of self-explanatory once I get started. But I go around the edges, where if you look at it right now, it's just white. You can see that. Obviously, you can see that because it's white paint. So I use a Sharpie. You can use any kind of marker, preferably something that's not water-based. You want this marker to stay once you go to the next phase and go to resining. And just a reminder, as we go through this part of the video, I do have a private tutorial that shows you how I get my really smooth edge on these charcuterie boards. And it is a private video. And I charge a small amount of money for it because it took me a lot of time to learn what I've learned over the course of a couple of years of doing these. And I put in my best practices. Of course, my practices are even continuing to change as we speak. But I show you what I do as my best practice to how I get the fine, smooth edge. However, that is only available for purchase. And people that have seen that video have been quite grateful, gracious, and thankful. Because if you're just starting out especially, there's been a lot of pain with my learning over the course of the last couple of years. Pain meaning a lot of mistakes, and I had to go back in and redo things. And if I had my own video before I started, I would have been that much farther ahead of the game. Now, of course, as with anything, I mean, you can watch videos all day long until you're blue in the face, but until you actually practice what you've seen or practice what you've learned, you're not going to learn it because, you know, book smarts is only so far, only gets you so far. You need that practical application. That's why you can't be afraid to dive in and take some chances. Try some new things. I'm always trying to think of new things, new ways to do the same thing I'm doing to make things more efficient, simpler, easier, less expensive. So yeah, this is all I do. I go around and cover all the white with this Sharpie. And this is really all. So let's see, as I go around, what else can I share with you? Oh, by the way, that video lives on YouTube, and in order to access it, you just need a Gmail account. So this is where we are. Now you can see that edge is nice and quiet. So now when this is going to be resined, you won't see the white that you see here. See the difference? It's subtle, but it makes a big difference in the way it finishes. Okay, so that's all I do. I'm going to do the same thing on this part, and I think that's going to be the end of this chapter of how to create a charcuterie board. I will link, if you want to access my private video, just email me. The email is in the description. And next up, I will have a link for the next process, which will be putting the paint skin onto the board itself. All right, we'll follow this process through, and we'll be in touch. All right, take care, everybody. So everyone, that's a wrap. And while we spent so much time on that paint skin, I wanted to show you the final result. I really do hope that you enjoyed this part 2 and found some good, valuable information out of this. I really appreciate a comment and a thumbs up if you can. And if you are new here, please join me by subscribing, hitting the bell and all. You'll get all my latest art tutorials. And above you'll see a link that I've added for part 3 of this charcuterie board process. So if you got everything you needed to know out of this tutorial, join me for part 3 where I go in depth into the application of the paint skin on the board. And I do hope that you took note on that really smooth resin finish I have on this board and all the other boards that I create now. So please stay tuned for parts 3, 4, and 5. And at the end of this, I will have a link to the full creation playlist of parts 1 through 5. So with all that said, that's all I have for now. And take care. Till next time.